this is going to be a turning point, and this is going to be a place where I'm gonna I want to take this fight, put what's happened in my last fights behind me, and just like hit the ground running. And
Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now.
So the big story, right, leading up to your return on July 15th is the layoff, man. You've been away for more than 2 years. Just
yep.
take us through, the 2 years, man. Like what exactly happened?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I tore my ACL, and I've just been grinding, trying to come back from that. Um, it's actually my second tear that I've had. The first one, I came back pretty quick. I actually fought on the first one. Right whenever I tore it, I was like a week out of my fight, about a week and a half actually, and it was for a UFC contract, so I didn't want to back out. So I went ahead and just fought on the torn ACL, and ended up winning the fight. Got the surgery right after. Had a quick turnaround after that. I think it was like usually it's a year turnaround, and then I think I was back in like 9 months after that. Fought again, fought a few more times, and then yeah, after my last fight, I tore it again, and then this time I had some complications, some things kind of going on with it that took a little bit longer to come back from. But fortunately, Sean Shelby in the UFC, they told me there's no rush, take my time, heal right, and make sure you come back, 100%. So I didn't want to come back a shell of myself. I wanted to make sure that I was coming back like with everything I had. So I took the last 2 years and just fortified this thing in the rest of my body, and really just became a student of the sport and slowed things down, and kind of turned into a bodybuilder. Honestly, my PT told me, he's like, just get hella strong, start lifting as much as you can, eating as much as you can. The stronger you make the muscles in that leg, the more it's gonna, the less it has to rely on the tendons. So I think that's a big thing when you're coming back from a serious injury like this, is making sure that your muscles are doing the job of the tendons. So that's what I did. I put on like, dude, I got up to like 200 plus. I think I was like 205 at one point, but feeling really strong. It wasn't like an unhealthy 205. It was like I felt like uh, pretty pretty stacked at that point, and was able to develop really good strength. And then, I wanted to test this knee. I wanted to give it some time and like have people just chunk kicks at it, have it folded in, be able to check and be able to like do everything that I needed to do to where I'm confident that I can step into a fight and people can, you know, throw a grenade at it and it's going to be just fine. And I got to that point, and like I said, Sean was cool. He was like, "Don't rush it." So I didn't see a point of rushing back in. I didn't feel like I had to prove to anybody that, I was tough and could get back in there soon. I've already done that twice. I've fought with serious injuries. I've fought with, and we all do. It's not just me. Anybody who's been in the game long enough. Um, Very rarely do you get to a fight healthy, so it's a blessing when you do. And I learned a lot in this fight camp, so that I actually know how to train smarter and healthier. And this fight camp has been incredible. I've been able to put the things that I learned outside of fight camp in my recovery into action into my fight camp, and it's made this. I mean, dude, I've had a great camp, and I feel like I got the right people around me, and I'm at a good point mentally and physically to take a fight with all the confidence in the world. And I feel like I'm better technically and I'm better physically going into this fight than I've ever been. So I'm excited about that.
So if there's any questions about the knee, anybody has any questions, it's battle tested. You just talked about
Oh,
how
it's
you put it through the
100% battle
ringer.
test, dude. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't talk about it,
Mhm.
honestly. And that's kind of like leading up to this thing, And I didn't talk about it leading up, like for a while. I just like kind of kept it under the radar and wasn't sure, like, should I talk about it or not? And then it's like I'm to the point now where it's like, fuck it. like they can, if they're thinking about trying to take that out, like that's, not something that I'm worried about. I have great defense for checking kicks. If they're going to throw leg kicks, I'm going to take them down. If they're going to throw leg kicks, I'm going to check and return. If they're going to throw, like there's nothing I'm worried about as far as like having my legs chopped away at. I've done leg conditioning. I've done all the things that I would have done before, and I feel confident that my legs are stronger than they've ever been. I know that because I've I did my DEXA scan and I've done things through the UFC that actually show me scientifically that my legs are stronger and have more muscle mass than they ever have. So yeah, I feel fortified and ready to go for this fight for sure.
You talked about putting on the muscle and gaining strength. How is that translated into the training? How have you felt? You know what I mean? Like when you start like getting into the clinch, getting into like wrestling positions, how have you felt with the added
Oh,
muscle?
yeah, I feel great. And that's something I've also been able to test. You spend a lot of time working on the striking and slowing things down. And grappling's kind of the last thing that you get back to. But man, I've been grappling that's what got me into this. That's like my bread and butter is grappling. So that's not something that I have to like be improving. And I am constantly improving it. Don't get me wrong. But that's something that's always going to be in my back pocket. Like I know how to wrestle. Um, I grew up wrestling. I wrestled in high school. I wrestled in college. I built my MMA career off of my wrestling pedigree and being able to take people down and beat them up and hold them down into the mat. Um, I've just developed my striking so much to where, dude, I'd love to strike now too. And I'm not afraid to stand with people. Just as I know that I can wrestle with them, I'm like just as comfortable standing. So I put time in, and I made sure. Getting back to your question, I made sure that I put that time in with the grappling, and that was another reason I didn't want to rush back. Is I didn't want to just be primarily focused on striking and be like, okay, I'm going in, but I'm not in wrestling shape. I wanted to be able to go through a wrestling grind and put wrestling in my camp and be able to wrestle 3 or 4 times a week to make sure that like my bread and butter can still be my bread and butter, and I can rely on my wrestling just like I can rely on any other aspect of my game.
Well, Team Alpha Male, they're known to take wrestlers and turn them into pretty phenomenal strikers. There's a long list of them, right?
Right. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And that's kind of what my first team did. I was with Team Takedown before I was with Team Alpha Male. And if you know anything about Team Takedown, that was Johnny Hendricks' old team.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so what they did was they took high-level wrestlers and they turned them into fighters. And that's what that whole program was built around. And that's how I actually got asked to start fighting. I wasn't planning on being a fighter. I was kind of pursuing a different career route. And then while I was at Oklahoma State, I was training with Johnny Hendricks quite a bit. He would come in and we'd be training partners and we'd get to work. And somehow when they found out that I was done wrestling and in the area, they reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in fighting. And it worked out to where I was able to go and get started there and learn a ton from Mark Lehman, and Tony Cabello was the striking coach. And I was able to get my feet wet. And then they also, so another cool thing about that team was in high school, I was trained by Kenny Monday, who's an Olympic gold medalist. Anybody who knows about wrestling knows the name Kenny Monday. He's like, in my opinion, the best to ever do it. So he trained me in high school. When I transferred to Oklahoma State, he took the assistant coaching job at Oklahoma State. So I was able to get him through high school and college. Well, then as soon as I started fighting, he was coaching MMA at Black Zillions in Florida. And then he ended up, like the coaches were like, yeah, we're thinking about getting Kenny Monday to come out here and start coaching for us. I was like, well, hell yeah, that's perfect. So I flew out to Florida and I helped him pack up his house, loaded up the U-Hauls, and we drove him out to headquarters in Texas. And then I got to train with him through there. And he's always been a part of my journey and a huge part of who I am as a fighter and as a wrestler. And I owe a lot to Kenny Monday, that's for sure.
Yeah, man, you've had a phenomenal journey, man, with a lot of great coaches, and going back to the layoff, when you finally got back into like full training and being able to do everything that you want to do, it looked like you were a part of a few fighters' camps. Am I wrong or am I right?
No, absolutely. That's another thing is what's that, buddy? Even though I wasn't active in the octagon, I've been in the octagon, cornering our guys at Team Alpha Male. Some really exciting up and comers. My buddy Ryan Loader, who's dude, just killing it right now. You guys will know that name for sure in the near future. It won't be long before he's in the UFC. And then Isaac Thompson is another guy that I've been
Oh
with.
yeah, yeah, from
Yeah,
Australia.
yeah, Australian kid. He's this kid is sick, man, and his only I wouldn't even say he had a dude. I'm sorry. Hey, you got to go, buddy. Go, go, go. Um, yeah, so he moved out here because Australia doesn't have strong wrestling. He was still a sick grappler, like really, really high level jujitsu, and he's living with me now, and I've been following him all over the country to coach him, and we train 2, 3 times a week in the mornings before practice. And dude, this kid is a grinder. He just like eats, breathes MMA and wrestling, especially. Like he just dove into the wrestling, and I've never seen somebody progress as fast as he has. He's like one of those dudes that's just like fun to coach because you only have to tell him once. You tell him how to do something, and then or you show him, and he just gets it. And an incredible athlete, incredible striker. He's when people talk about that next generation, he's that next generation.
Yeah.
So he's been really exciting. And then a few other guys that have just been staying active coaching. And when I'm coaching these guys, and we're going through fight week, I'm I'm big on visualization. Something that my dad always instilled in me was if you can see it in your head, you can make it real. And that's something that has been just like ingrained in me since I was a kid, and I'm constantly doing that. When we're there for fight week, when he's cutting weight, in my head I'm cutting weight. When he's doing his weigh-ins, in my head I'm weighing in. When he's backstage and we're getting warmed up, he's getting his hands wrapped. I'm getting my hands wrapped. And when he goes and beats someone's ass and gets his hand raised, I feel it, and I like carry that energy with me, and it keeps me, even though haven't been fighting, like you better believe I'm getting my reps.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. It's all mental, right? Once you get to a point of like learning so much physically, and you've been doing wrestling for your whole life, and you've been training MMA for so many years, it's like the mind catches up, and then you get to like what they say, the prime of your fight career.
Right, right. Yeah, and a big part of this is, obviously we're constantly training to stay physically healthy and to get as strong as we can, as fast as we can, and as technical as we can, and then learn all the tricks and stuff. But if your mind isn't strong, then I mean, what do you have, So, constantly pushing ourselves and making sure that we're building that mental toughness, and that's something that is an ongoing journey, and that wrestling is, key. Life is wrestling. As Clay Guida says, life is wrestling. Um, Everything that we do, we have to put that same kind of mindset into it. And when fighting's over, I plan on whatever avenue I end up taking. I want to make sure that I'm putting that same type of mindset into whatever I do after this.
You return on July 15th. You'll be at the Apex, and do you feel like fighting in the Apex, a little bit more intimate setting, not as many people, not a large arena, would be a perfect environment for you to make your return after such a long layoff?
Oh, it doesn't matter, man. I, I mean, I've competed in so many places, from the smallest podunk gyms in Oklahoma and Iowa to the biggest arenas, and whether and with a lot of like fights with a lot of pressure, where you have Dana White and Max Holloway announcing, and these big names in the crowd, and it's all kind of the same to me at this point. You know, I get tunnel vision whenever I get to the fight, and all I'm thinking about is the person in front of me and what I'm going to do to them. So I'm not so focused on whether the arena is big or small, or who's going to be there and who's not going to be there. Um, that being said, I'm excited to get in a full arena and get in a place where you can feel the energy of the crowd, and you can feel the roar of like a big stadium. So after this fight, that's certainly something that I'm going to be looking for. But if Sean is like, hey, we can get you on this card sooner and it's in the Apex again, then hell yeah, let's do it again. That's not as big of a deal to me at this point in my career. Getting in the cage and making up for lost time certainly is. So I just want to make sure we're doing that.
No doubt. And Carl Deaton III, what are your thoughts on him?
I think he's tough. He's a tough guy. He got put to sleep his last fight and he didn't tap. So I mean, respect, you know, as far as that goes, for going out on a shield. But like, when Sean gave me that name, I was like, hell yeah, let's take that fight. I want that fight. I think it's a great matchup. I think that my wrestling matches up better than his. I think my striking does. I think that I'm going to be stronger and faster. I feel like every way that I look at this fight, any way that I see it going, it's just like in my favor. And I like that, especially for this fight.
Where do you feel like, you know, I mean, this fight's going to play out? Do you feel like it's going to be more on the grappling side, or do you feel like you're going to be able to show off the striking?
Oh, I'm definitely going to show off some striking. I want to go out there and I just want to control it everywhere. I don't want to rush anything. I want to be patient and I want to be calculated. You know, I think that's the most important thing with all my fights, just staying calm and calculated and not forcing anything and just letting everything happen organically. I'm not the kind of guy that like puts together a super rigid game plan, because if something starts going off track, I don't want to feel like, oh shit, the game plan's not going to plan. Like, I feel like I have a very high fight IQ, and I want to make sure that when I'm fighting, I'm just reading things right and I'm seeing my timing. And if the opportunity comes for the takedown, I'm going to get the takedown. And if we're going to crash and close the distance, then I'm going to crash smart and we're going to have a collision that's going to be in my favor. And if that doesn't happen right away and I'm just finding my range and picking my shots, then I'm cool with that too. I like I said, I visualize a lot, and I visualized all of these scenarios just over and over and over again. And I see him in front of me, and I see that rat tail fucking back and forth and following it and sticking and making that thing whip. So it's like I'm ready for wherever the fight goes for sure.
You know, where you're at in your career, do you feel like this is like a reset for you in some ways?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be a turning point, and this is going to be a place where I'm going to like I want to take this fight, put what's happened in my last fights behind me, and just like hit the ground running and start with this one. And I'm not getting ahead of this fight. I have really intelligent people around me, so that, you know, I'm not like looking for my next opponent right now. But I have my buddy Mike Malott, and I have my other coaches who I really trust, that know my division and I can reach out to, and who are just like MMA nerds almost. Like my buddy Mike just nerds out on MMA. He loves it, and I love that about him. And it's cool. I can be like, hey, dude, like, what do you think would be a strategic move for me in this next one? And he can give me like a list of names and be like, yeah, I think that this would be great for you, and this would be great for you, and this would be great for you. And he can structure these things. And when you have a support system like that and you have a good group of people behind you, it really makes it to where I can just focus on punches and kicks and elbows and takedowns, and I don't have to like sit there and be like analyzing opponents and figuring. I can just trust my people and be like, hey, what do you think's the next move? And they can be like, this is the next move. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. So
For sure. And Mike Malott looked like he's the next best thing out of Canada, right? Like kind of
yeah,
taking the reins, huh?
man. And we always knew that with Mike when he told me, he was like, yeah, he's like, I think I'm done fighting. He told me this like maybe 4 years ago. I was like, dude, you're not done fighting. I was like, you ain't done, man. There's no way you're done fighting. Like, you're too sick. But I think he did the right thing. He took a break. He took some time, and he grew tremendously. Like, he was already, in my mind, one of the best fighters in the world. And then where he took his, like, it was just awesome. Every time I'd get to see him train again, he's just like, 10% better and 10% better and 10% better, and just constantly grinding and chopping away and adding another 10% every time I see him. And then before I knew it, 4 years went by, and he's just like a whole nother freaking animal, dude. Which is really saying something, considering the respect I was giving him before he turned into that animal. He was already a beast. So it's been really exciting to watch Mike and his journey, and he's just going to keep getting better. He's going to keep smashing people. There's no doubt about it. Dude's
Yeah,
sick.
just like Mike, you're doing the same thing. You took your little break, not something that you wanted, but you had to do it. Now you're back, July 15th, UFC Fight Night, Las Vegas. Alex,
Yep,
always
yep.
appreciate the time, man, and all the best in this fight, man. I'm excited to see the reset version of you. You know what I mean? The next
Hell
level
yeah.
of you.
Yeah, hell yeah. Me too. I'm ready for this next chapter. And, thank you for everybody who continues to support me. And thank you, John, for having me on your podcast. It was great chatting with you. I appreciate you reaching out, and I really appreciate the opportunity.